Well, isn't this a beautiful day? We've got some eucalyptus trees in this park. That's Toro over there. And these are some of his bikes. He runs Juiced Bikes. And this is actually one of the latest models. Really exciting to see this thing, and especially in two different frame styles. It comes in this step-through, a little bit easier to approach, and more traditionally kind of like a girl-style frame. And the cantilever high step, just classic cruiser. It comes in several different colors, including this like sea foam and this greenery. They've got black, there's like an army green color, and red. Keeps it nice and fun, right? A little bit of customization. But one thing that really separates this from some of the other cruiser style electric bikes I've seen is the way that they integrate the battery. So you can see it's right there on the downtube. It's protected somewhat. You know, if the bike tips over, it frees up the rear end of the bike so you don't get the frame flex. You can also add a rack if you're someone who wants to use this to go to the grocery store, or run errands, or even commute. But it's just going to ride a lot better. It's going to be more balanced. That weight's lower, right? It's not crack the whip feeling. You still have a classic hub motor. These tend to be really zippy, and they work well with trigger throttles, which this has. It has a throttle built right in. So if you want, you can just sit on this thing and zip around. Or if you're someone who's a little more active, you want to get your legs moving and flexibility and enjoy yourself that way, you know, you've got a Shimano Acera. That's a little bit of an upgrade right there. Some or actually twist shifters on the right, and it's an 8-speed. So you have 8 gears to go through to help you climb or to help you reach higher top speeds. And it's kind of an interesting bike because cruisers, I think of them as like relaxed, you know, get around, your body's upright, you can see things a little bit easier, your back and neck might not be quite as uncomfortable because you don't have to reach, you don't have to do this, you just kind of like steering it like that. I like that, but you could still go faster. So I was up at like 26-ish miles per hour earlier. You have to use an app to tell because the display is a little bit more simplified here, but that also keeps it clutter-free. It's not going to overwhelm people maybe the same way. It's a neat combination. Again, very capable, a little bit higher speed if you want, but all the same classic features of other cruiser-style electric bikes at an amazing price. And I mean, it's incredible. These guys are known for having more affordable e-bikes in general. This one, it's $12.99, and they have a year-long warranty for some of the electronics like the battery, 2 years for some of the components, and then lifetime on the frame. And they've been around. Tora's been doing this stuff since 2009, like making some kit battery stuff, right? And
yes.
That's, I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
Right? So I want to lavish you with some compliments here. He speaks multiple languages, spent a lot of time in Asia actually designing this, which is where all the electric bikes and things, it's all manufactured over there. So by being able to spend some time over there, but also, you know, being from the United States, and you've actually, you know, I was just talking to Rich, some of your teammates earlier, and he was like, yeah, Tori, you've been in training for the Olympics in the past, a high jump,
yes.
and
yes, I went to the Olympics in 2004. I trained since, you know, I've been doing it for 20 years as far as that career. Yeah.
Well, you look healthy. Look
Thank
at
you.
you keeping your great shape.
Yeah, definitely. E-bikes keep me busy. I bring that passion and the motivation level, and just you know.
Well, there's this sportsmanship.
Yes,
like
exactly.
for a long time, you know, I've been running and I've been snowboarding and surfing, and you know, eventually I got a kind of a knee injury. That's what brought me into it. What got you excited about electric bikes, Mr. Athlete? Like,
Right.
What's the deal?
Right. So, what we a little bit different is we look at it as a transportation and as a fun. You know, it is also fitness, but you know what we're saying is, like, even if you're at a top, you know, class athlete, they love the bikes. The athletes love the bikes because they're tired sometimes after training and they want to just ride home. You know, it's like a car.
Yeah.
And this, you know, kind of puts everything together. So you do a little bit of activity or a lot, if you want. You know? And then it's, you know, so that's how we do it.
Well said. You know, I just want to bring that up because there's been this controversy maybe over the past several years as e-bikes have gained popularity in the United States. They're already very popular and widely accepted in Europe and in Asia. And I think that especially as you get into cruiser, more relaxed, potentially some older riders, people who are like, yeah, you know, I used to ride and now I just want to like not worry about it. The battery capacity on this is really impressive. It's a 48 volt pack, 8.8 amp hours, which I would say is slightly above average. More of the batteries and control systems out there are going to 48 volt because it's a little bit more efficient sending that electricity versus 36 volt. Has a 15 amp controller, so it's pretty zippy. and it has a higher C rating on the battery, so it can charge a little faster and discharge faster. You should expect, 20 plus miles. It really depends on your weight. Are you climbing hills? Are you going above 20 miles per hour? Because there's some inefficiency there, the wind resistance, air resistance, but still very capable. And now Tora, you were telling me you introduced a new 10.4 amp hour pack?
Yes, we have a 10.4, a 17, and a 21. And
Whoa!
and they all work on all of our bikes. So,
Okay.
It's
modular.
It's modular. So, all of our parts are kind of like interchangeable between all the bikes. So cross current, ocean current, cross current air, anything with the current on it are kind of like the same series.
Well, it's great to know. I do want to point out that some of the larger packs you mentioned, they probably only fit on this cantilever high step frame. If you get...
No, it fits.
Does it fit?
It fits.
Okay, I was a little worried. I was thinking the tubing, these batteries, they kind of come out. I have the keys. I want to show this. Okay, so I've got the key. I insert it. You kind of have to, it's spring loaded, so you kind of turn it. Is this the right key?
Oh, it may be the wrong one.
I wonder if it's for this one. We should see. You want to try that one?
Yeah.
We'll take turns here.
Yeah. This one.
Okay, well, hey, let's do it. So see, he turns it,
Mhm.
and then you pull on that little lever, and it sort of comes out kind of at an
Sideways.
angle,
Yes.
right? Which is, it's a lot of these other electric bikes have batteries that kind of come up,
Yes.
or they're bolted onto the down tube instead of integrated like this. So this is, I'm glad you made it fit, man.
Yes. It was the absolute smallest area we can make it and still fit the 17. That's by design.
Yeah. Well, back at the website, I've measured standover height, and that's this measurement. Hopping on the frame, how much clearance do you have? I have female friends who ride bikes with me sometimes, and they're a little intimidated with the higher step because you jump off and you can kind of hit your leg or whatever. Both of these are about 18 inches. And there's a lot of adjustability in the seat post and these big swept-back handlebars. Tora was telling me this is custom, that they chose one themselves that really seemed to fit and feel good on this bike. Aluminum alloy, rigid aluminum alloy fork. This is one area where, there are cruisers out there that have suspension and it's a little bit more comfortable that way, but the weight goes up a lot. This is 51 pounds. These are both 51 pounds. So it's pretty that's reasonable considering the larger battery pack. 500 watt internally geared hub motor peaks at 700 something. Do you remember? We were
720.
720. I mean, that's a lot of juice. And I mentioned the 15 amps earlier and stuff. Maybe you're not a super tech geek or whatever. That's fine. But I just want to communicate it's zippy, but you still have a lot of control and the simplified interface. I'm going to come back to that, but let's keep going around the bike. We've got 13 gauge spokes up front. It's a little bit thicker. 12 gauge in the rear. That's that's very thick, and it is meant to help support the added forces coming from that hub motor. A little bit wider rims, double walled, and we've got these nice Kenda small block 8 tires. So they're a little bit wider, and that's going to help improve the comfort a little bit while you're riding. 26 by 2.35. They've got this kind of a hybrid go anywhere tread on them. You do hear it a little more zzz while you're riding, but if you ever have to cut across grass or dirt, it's nice to have that. Disc brakes, that's another area where they've upgraded a little bit. These are mechanical. It's not hydraulic, but it's kind of a step up from rim brakes or something. If you happen to go through a muddy area or wet, this is going to stay cleaner and probably brake more effectively. So 180 millimeter rotor up front, 160 in the rear, and you can see that it's just got the bolts and stuff to keep these wheels on. So you might need some tools if you had to do any maintenance on this. You could take it to your bike shop. Tor told me that Juiced Bikes is sold through some dealers, but they also sell them online. So it's one of those sort of flexible things. More and more companies are trying to provide better options to reach the wider market. This is a point of vulnerability for me. It's a point I call out a lot for hub motors. You can see that the cable, it's pretty well tucked in and everything, but if your bike's tipping over or if you're snagging it, just be careful with that wire because that could wreck your motor. You can also see that we've got the derailleur cable and everything over here. It's a sensitive part of the bike. That's why the kickstand is on the other side. And that's another point that, I've been complaining about this to Tora, you pedal backwards, see the pedal collides with the kickstand, and then you have to walk the bike forward a little bit like this to get the kickstand up. I like that you can pedal backwards. This isn't any different than a lot of bicycles. But if we come over to this other side, they've upgraded the chainring, so it's got a little bit of a guide. There's a plastic plate on both sides, so if you're going over some bumps, especially using the throttle, that chain can kind of hop off, but not with a guide. This really helps. I love the Wellgo aluminum alloy platform pedals, great surface area, pretty grippy, so if it's wet outside, that's an area that it's kind of nice to feel like you're secure. And they've got some fender bosses, so you could potentially add those aftermarket, or if you have the rear rack, a lot of times that doubles as a little bit of a rear fender back there. But check it out, they've added their plastic fenders. Love that it has a double support right here, as well as attachments here and here. That's 4 attachment points, so you shouldn't get a lot of rubbing or rattling, as well as a Planet Bike Versa rack. So I don't think they make them. It's Planet Bike, right? This is kind of a mainstream brand, but they've tested them to work and they sell them. So if you are someone who lives where it's rainier and you're like, well, I really want fenders and I don't want to screw around with it, they have an option. So yeah, I just thought that was neat. Seatpost, it's 27.2. That's very standard in this industry. You could replace that with a suspension seat post for more comfort, like a Thud Buster or a Body Float. They have some cheaper ones on Amazon, but the ones I just mentioned, Body Float has a really long travel one that's nice. Just be careful, if you're a shorter rider, maybe you already got this one, you're gonna be raising the minimum seat height by putting a suspension element in there. So it's kind of a trade-off, you know, it's something you wanna think about. Nice, cushy saddle from Velo. You know, it doesn't have the bumpers or springs, but it's a little bit wider surface area and fairly soft. This is an area where people often customize for themselves. Kind of generic grips, rubber, you know, flat. That's probably some of the areas where they tried to keep this cheaper, right? Just the standard grips, the standard seat kind of stuff. It fits, it works like a cruiser, but it's not quite as like glamorous as some of the other ones I've seen. I do like that the shifter here, it's kind of a grip shift. It blends in nicely and it might be more intuitive to someone who's not as familiar with bikes. The triggers can get confusing, like which one's easier, which one's harder, whereas this just has a plus and minus and you just twist it. It's fairly intuitive that way. Also the stem, you can kind of raise or lower this. This is a quill stem. Pretty classic. I feel like and I like the bottle cage bosses on the high step frame, because you know it's nice to carry along a lock or have maybe some water or something like that if you don't end up with the rack. It's very, very complete. I'm still amazed with some of the higher end brands don't have bottle cage bosses or things like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they fit on the step through bike, but you know there are trade-offs here that you have to make. I love the colors again. Let's talk about this battery just real quick one more time. That's just so cool to me. And this battery design has been upgraded. So you used to have to press power and then press it again. It's simplified. All you have to do is make sure the battery's charged. Come up here to this little display, press the power button, and it lights up and it blinks and says, okay, you got 5 out of 5 battery level, so it's fully charged. And then you can choose from Eco, 1, 2, 3, or Sport. So going from lower power to higher power by pressing plus or minus. And they've got this cool Sport button. See, it jumps you up from whatever you're at all the way to Sport for high speed and just give you more power. However, the throttle always overrides these at full power. So if you're someone who's like down in level 1, just cruising along, taking your time, and then you realize, oh, there's this hill and I need the extra power, but I don't want to look down, I don't want to press buttons, I just need to go. Boom, throttle, instant power. I like that. It's really nice design. It's nice to have both of those systems working in tandem, but you do want to be careful because if you forget to turn this off and you're loading this or walking into your house and you press the throttle, the bike will get away from you. Okay, so that's true of really any bike that has a throttle. It's just something that for this particular demographic, someone who might be a little bit more just chilling out, you don't want to get yourself into a situation like that. I love that the key does not have to be in the battery in order to ride this thing. I mean, it's pretty great. Oh, even the cables up here, these are like watertight, threaded. They've got like a little O-ring in there. That's a nice upgrade. The wires aren't quite as clean and integrated as some electric bikes I've seen. Like you can see they're run along the frame. And Toro was telling me like, well, our dealers like that because it's a little easier to service and maybe it's just less complex, but they do show a little bit more. I think it's a fairly decent solution, utility and price savings potentially versus pure aesthetics. And when you're looking from the side or down, they blend in nicely. Is there anything you'd like to share that maybe I've missed, Tora?
Yes. Just the one thing is the sporty feel of it. And when you ride on it, you're going to see.
Yeah.
With that torque sensor, I think maybe that's something that only a couple bike cruisers out there have, the torque sensor. And I think that is what makes this bike gonna feel super sporty and give you the punch when you're riding.
That's a great point. I really didn't go into it too much before. Admittedly, I'm taking this review just kind of I'm trying to think of who might be getting this cruiser versus one of your more active bikes. And you know, you're getting systems here that are a little sportier, like he said, and one of them is this TMM4 torque sensor down here. It it measures the strain. So when you push, it's not just that you're moving those cranks, it's that you're pushing. And that means that it activates a little quicker. You can get started even if you're in a high gear without pushing too much, without straining your knees, and I appreciate that. And at the same time, it even has like a little cadence sensor in there, like a hall sensor. So it can tell whether you're moving those cranks or not. And that makes for a really fluid ride, one where you get instant feedback, but you maybe don't have to push quite as hard at other times. A lot of times with like torque sensors, I feel like, man, you have to work harder. And this one, it really balances those two things out nicely. Do you have any other thoughts before I get on and do a little ride test?
You have to try it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna hop on this thing. I did test both of these earlier on our way over here. I was checking the step through just to see like how flexy is the frame, because a lot of times you kind of trade off, you compromise all this extra reinforcement, the strong triangle, for a step through ease of mounting it, and these tend to be flexier. But because the battery position is low like that, it's actually fairly stiff. It feels good. Both of them rode really well. And again, the frames they're kind of similar, even though that one looks a little bit more approachable. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on the cantilever, just ride around the block. I'm on eco. Well, let's take it all the way to eco and do the throttle. It is a variable speed throttle, so see, I'm not out of control here. Nice and slow. Now I'm gonna juice it. You know. Whoa, boy. Checking out those brakes a little bit, steering. Throttle takes you to about 20 miles per hour, which is pretty standard. If you want that extra power, you gotta pedal along and jump up to sport, so let's do that. Maybe shift gears too. You know, we're going quite fast, but the bike feels good. I'm not getting like speed wobble or anything. You know, a lot of times on some of these bikes, the frame flex and the balance makes it so you can't ride without hands like this, and it just doesn't handle as well. There's a little bit of kind of scuffing and rubbing sounds going on. I'm gonna hop on the other one. I think this was a demo bike, and they've been moving them all around, so it might be time for a little bit of a tune-up. Hop on. I think I usually ride when I'm actually commuting and stuff. I tend to ride in like level 2 or 3. So let's do that. And I'm gonna pedal and see how quickly it responds. Really fast. I feel like they've done a good job just sort of with the settings and, you know, the reads on their torque sensor. You'll notice this is a lot quieter because we're not in that high level. We're also not going as fast, and you can't tell much because there's no LCD console here. They do sell an upgrade, so you can add that later if you want. I think that's kind of a neat feature. And now I'm gonna jump to sport again. Take the grass. Pretty cool. Not too noisy. There's no rattling around because you don't have those accessories. And that's part of the cost savings too. No rack or fenders, no lights. Those are areas where, you know, you could tap into that USB port or add some aftermarket. Hope that's given you a good idea of what to expect with the new OceanCurrent. I feel like Juiced Bikes is doing a good job, and it's always an honor, privilege to get to hang out with a founder. Someone asked some good questions, so thank you so much, Tor. We'll see you next time. For the full write-up on this with all the specs I kept talking about, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. And of course, have fun, but ride safe.